There is a kind of tiredness that sleep does not fix. You wake up and your mind is already full, already crowded, already carrying conversations that have not happened yet, opinions you have not chosen, problems that are not yours. This is not thinking. This is noise that learned how to sound like thinking. Real thinking has direction. It moves toward something. Noise just moves in circles and calls it awareness. For a long time you were taught that to be conscious means to be aware of everything, to keep up with everything, to have a position on everything. So your mind became a room with 100 radios on at once, each one playing a different station at a different volume, and you stand in the middle trying to listen to all of them, because you believe that if you turn one off, you will miss something essential. That is the first misunderstanding. Awareness is not accumulation. Clarity is not the result of carrying more. The mind was never designed to hold everything at once. When it tries, it does not become smarter. It becomes heavier. There is a validated pattern behind this. When attention is forced to switch constantly between topics, people, worries, and information streams, a residue stays behind. A part of you is still processing the last thing while trying to process the next thing. Over hours, that residue becomes a weight. You call it anxiety. You call it overthinking. But often it is just a tension that never got to come home. You are not weak because you feel overwhelmed. You are overwhelmed because you have been trying to be everywhere mentally while living in one body in one day. Permission is important here. You are allowed to not follow every thought that appears. A thought appearing does not mean it is true. A thought appearing does not mean it is yours to solve. A thought appearing does not mean it deserves your energy today. This is not avoidance. Avoidance is pretending something does not exist. This is discernment. Discernment is seeing that something exists and choosing not to carry it. There is a woman who lives this every day without noticing. She wakes up and before her feet touch the floor, she has already checked 3 different worlds. The news of a place she has never been, the opinion of someone she has never met, the crisis of a group she does not belong to. By 9 in the morning, she has already absorbed fear, anger, excitement, and sadness that have nothing to do with her actual life. She is informed, but she is not centered. She is updated, but she is not present. She sits down to work and cannot focus because inside her there are still 10 unfinished conversations. Not because she is lazy, because she is full, and a full mind cannot receive what is real. The noise that pretends to be thinking has a very specific voice. It says, if I think about this a little more, I will feel safe. If I understand everything, I will be in control. If I have an answer for everything, no one can catch me unprepared. That promise is false. Thinking about everything does not create safety. It creates exhaustion. You cannot think your way into peace if the way you think is what is taking your peace away. So the practice begins not by adding a new technique, but by subtracting a habit. Notice when noise arrives. Notice how it feels in the body. Tight chest, shallow breath, eyes moving fast, jaw tense. Real thinking feels different. It feels slower, grounded, quiet. It has weight. Noise is fast, shallow, urgent. When you learn to feel the difference, you stop arguing with noise. You simply stop following it. You do not need to win an argument with a radio that is playing in an empty room. You just stop sitting in that room. This is the first step of focusing on what you believe in. You cannot focus on what you believe in while you are trying to focus on absolutely everything. Belief needs space. It needs silence around it to be heard. If your inner table is covered with 100 papers, you cannot find the one paper that actually matters to you today. So today, You are not going to try to empty your mind completely. You are going to stop feeding it with everything. You are going to let some radios turn off by themselves. You are going to let some opinions exist without your participation. You are going to let some problems be real without being yours to solve right now. And in that small space that opens, something else will begin to appear. Not a new thought. A direction. And that direction has been waiting for you underneath all the noise. That is why the mind holds on so tightly to everything. It believes that letting go means falling behind. But what if letting go is actually how you finally catch up with yourself? There is a reason this holding feels so automatic, so moral, so necessary. And understanding that reason is what will allow you to finally stop carrying what was never meant to be carried. That is where we need to look next. At some point you stopped believing that silence could be a position. If you did not react, if you did not comment, if you did not have a ready answer, you felt invisible. Not wrong. Invisible. And invisibility started to feel dangerous. This did not come from inside you. It was trained into you. Every platform, every conversation, every group began to reward the quick opinion. The faster you respond, the more you exist. So you learn to turn your mind into a comment section. Something happens, and instantly a voice says, "What do you think? Where do you stand?" You were never given time to ask the more honest question, "Do I need to stand anywhere about this at all?" The pressure is subtle. It does not shout. It whispers that if you do not have an opinion, you are uninformed. If you stay quiet, you are weak. So you carry opinions like keys, dozens of them, most for doors you will never open. This is exhausting not because you care too much, but because you are forced to care about everything at a shallow level. Real care has depth. It chooses. The current system trains you for the opposite. It trains you to skim everything and anchor nothing. When you have an opinion on everything, you lose the ability to believe in something. Belief requires staying. Opinion only requires reacting. Belief asks you to live with something for a long time. Opinion asks you to say something quickly and move on. You cannot do both with the same energy. One cancels the other. You feel this each time you say something you do not truly believe just to fill silence. Afterwards, there is a strange emptiness, not because you lied to others, but because you abandoned yourself for a second to be included. That small abandonment, repeated hundreds of times, becomes your normal state. You start to live as if your value comes from being up to date, not from being rooted. There is a man who notices this only on Sundays. During the week he is sharp, informed, ready with an answer for every topic at work, at home, online, on Sunday. When there is nothing to respond to, he feels oddly guilty, as if doing nothing is laziness. So he opens his phone to find something to have an opinion about, just to feel productive again. He does not enjoy it. He just does not know how to feel valuable without reacting. He has never told anyone about this guilt because it sounds strange, but many people live exactly like him. They do not fear being wrong. They fear being quiet. This is not a character flaw. This is conditioning. You were conditioned to believe your attention must be available to everything, all the time. And because attention is limited, when spread everywhere, it becomes thin everywhere. Thin attention cannot create belief. It can only create noise. Belief needs thick attention. It needs you to stay with one thing long enough for it to take root. If you are constantly switching, nothing takes root. You know many things, but you are held by nothing. Permission here is simple and uncomfortable. You are allowed to not have an opinion about most things. You are allowed to hear something and say internally, "This is not mine to carry today." You are allowed to let others debate while you remain silent, without making silence mean agreement. Silence can simply mean, "I am choosing where to place my life force." That choice is not passivity. It is clarity. It is saying, "I will not spend my limited inner currency on everything that asks for it." The reframe is this: having no opinion on everything does not make you ignorant. It makes you intentional. People who believe deeply are not people who have opinions on everything. They are people who released everything that is not essential. They seem calm not because they know more, but because they carry less. Their calm is not emptiness. It is focus. You have been trying to earn belonging by being informed about everything. What if belonging to yourself comes from the opposite? From choosing a few things that are truly yours and letting the rest exist without your commentary. When you do that, your nervous system softens. Your breath deepens. Your mind stops scanning every horizon for the next thing to react to. Because you have given it a home. A belief is a home for attention. Without a home, attention wanders and calls wandering freedom. With a home, attention returns and discovers that true freedom is not wandering everywhere, but being able to stay somewhere because you chose it. And that staying reveals a deeper problem most people never face. If you stop having an opinion on everything, you will quickly discover whether you actually believe in anything at all. That emptiness, if it appears, is not failure. It is the beginning of the next layer, and it is precisely where we need to go. When nothing inside is chosen as central, everything outside becomes central by default. That is what happens when you believe in nothing deeply. You do not feel free. You feel pulled. One day a headline pulls you. The next day a trend pulls you. The next day someone else's crisis pulls you. Without a chosen center, your attention has no gravity. It orbits whatever is loudest. This is why so many people feel busy and empty at the same time. They are busy orbiting. They are empty because nothing holds them. There is a pattern that appears in people who live like this. They are adaptable to a fault. They can fit into any room, agree with any group, understand any perspective. On the surface, this looks like wisdom. Inside, it feels like disappearance. Because to adapt to everything is to belong nowhere in particular. You become skilled at reading what others believe, and unskilled at feeling what you believe. Over time, you start to ask for external signals to tell you what matters. If many people care about it, you care about it. If no one is talking about it, you drop it. Your sense of importance becomes outsourced. This is not because you are shallow. It is because you have never been taught that belief is a choice that requires practice. You were taught to collect information, not to choose a direction. So your inner table is full, but your inner compass is still in the box. There is a simple image for this. Imagine a house with 100 windows open and no door closed. Wind comes from everywhere. Papers fly. You spend all day closing one window after another, but because none stay closed, you never stop. That is the mind without a central belief. Everything enters, nothing settles. Energy is spent on managing drafts, not on living inside the house. A central belief closes the unnecessary windows, not because the outside is bad, but because inside needs to become inhabitable again. I know a woman who realized this during a very ordinary week. She had a good job, good friends. She did everything right. Yet at night she felt a strange restlessness. She could not name what she wanted. She could list what others wanted from her. She could list what the world said she should want. But when asked, "What do you actually believe in so deeply that you would organize your week around it?" she had no immediate answer. not because she believed in nothing, but because she had never allowed one belief to become more important than the others. Everything was equally important, which means nothing was truly important. The moment she admitted that was not a collapse. It was clarity. She saw that her exhaustion did not come from doing too much. It came from being anchored by nothing while trying to respond to everything. This is where validation matters. If you feel that restlessness, it does not mean you are broken. It means your system is asking for an anchor. A human being cannot live well without an anchor. Not an opinion, not a preference, an anchor. Something that remains true even when mood changes, even when trends change, even when people approve or disapprove. Without that, identity becomes reactive. You become who the last conversation needed you to be. Permission is uncomfortable here too. You are allowed to choose what you believe in. You do not need permission from history, from family, from culture, from your past. You are allowed to say, "This is what I will stand for now." Not forever, not to impress anyone, but now, because I need a center to live from. You are allowed to make one thing more important than other things. That does not make you closed. It makes you coherent. The reframe is simple. Believing in nothing deeply does not make you open-minded. It makes you porous. Open-minded means you can listen to many things. Porous means everything passes through you and nothing stays. What you want is not porosity. What you want is permeability with a center. You can listen to everything, but you return to one true thing. That return is what creates inner weight. People feel you differently when you have a center. You speak slower. You choose more. You no longer rush to explain yourself. Because you are no longer trying to be understood by everyone. You are trying to be faithful to what you believe in. That faithfulness is what stops the leaking. And if while listening to this you recognized that you have lived correctly, responsibly, even admirably, but without a chosen center, pause for a moment and do this. In the comments, write one word you want to believe in again. Not a phrase, not an explanation, just one word. Clarity, peace, truth, presence, faith. Write it not to perform, but to anchor. Sometimes daring to name it is the first moment the wind stops. And once you name it, a new question appears immediately. If belief is not a thought you have, but a direction you live from, how do you actually live from it without turning it into another idea to think about? That difference between idea and direction is everything, and it is exactly where we need to go next. A belief is not a sentence you repeat to yourself to feel better. It is not an affirmation. It is not a thought you can post. A belief is a direction you agree to move in, even when you do not feel like it. That is why it is so different from an opinion. An opinion lives in your head. A belief lives in your legs. It changes where you go, what you say no to, what you stay with when it is inconvenient. Most people try to believe with their mind only. They collect ideas about peace, about truth, about presence, but they never let those ideas change their schedule. So the ideas remain decorative. Real belief is not decorative. It is structural. It reorganizes your day without you having to motivate yourself every hour. Think of it like this. An opinion is like a map you look at. A belief is like a compass you carry. A map shows you many possible routes. A compass shows you one direction. When you have too many maps, you spend your life comparing routes. When you have a compass, you start walking. The walking is what clarifies, not the comparing. This is why focusing on what you believe in is so calming. It reduces the number of decisions you need to make. If you believe in presence, you do not need to decide whether to check your phone while someone is talking to you. The decision is already made. If you believe in truth, you do not need to decide whether to say what you mean to be liked. The decision is already made. Belief decides beforehand, so you do not have to negotiate with yourself in every moment. That negotiation is what exhausts you. Every small negotiation drains a little energy. Over a day, that becomes a lot. A central belief removes hundreds of negotiations. You stop asking, should I do this? Should I care about this? Should I react to this? You already know. You know because you chose a direction. I met a man who learned this not through spirituality, but through fatigue. He worked in a field where everything was urgent. Every email felt important. Every request felt personal. He tried to be good at everything and ended up feeling thin everywhere. One day he wrote down one sentence, not to inspire others, but to remind himself. I believe in doing one thing with full attention. That was it. He did not try to fix his whole life. He just started using that sentence as a filter. Before saying yes, before opening another tab, before answering quickly, he asked, does this allow me to do one thing with full attention? If not, he did not do it. Within weeks, his work did not decrease. His anxiety did. Because he stopped living from reaction and started living from direction. This is validation you may need. If you have many beautiful ideas but your life still feels scattered, it does not mean your ideas are false. It means they have not yet become direction. Ideas become direction when they cost you something. When you lose a little approval because you stayed with what you believe. When you lose a little speed because you chose depth. When you lose a little noise because you chose silence. That cost is what makes belief real. Without cost, belief is just preference. Permission here is precise. You are allowed to let your belief be narrow. You were taught that to be spiritual you must be wide, open to everything, accepting of everything. Real depth is narrow before it is wide. A river is narrow before it reaches the sea. If you try to be wide too early, you become shallow. You are allowed to be narrow. You are allowed to say, for this season of my life, I am focusing on this one true thing. Not because other things do not matter, but because one thing must matter more if anything is to matter at all. The reframe is this. Believing in something does not close your mind. It focuses your mind. An unfocused light illuminates nothing. A focused light can be seen from miles away. You are not closing yourself to life when you choose a belief. You are giving life a place to land in you. Otherwise, life just passes through. So ask yourself quietly, not as a task, but as a return. What direction have I been avoiding choosing? Because choosing would require me to disappoint the idea that I can be everything to everyone. That disappointment is necessary. It is the beginning of coherence. When you choose a direction, you will disappoint the part of you that wanted to be liked for being agreeable. You will also finally meet the part of you that wants to be respected for being real. And that meeting changes how you handle thoughts themselves. Because once you have a direction, you no longer need to think about absolutely everything. You only need to think about what serves that direction. Which brings us to the practical question everyone gets wrong. How do you actually stop thinking about everything without falling into suppression or pretending you are peaceful when you are not? That art of clearing without avoiding is the next step, and it is simpler than you think. Clearing your mind is not about pushing thoughts away. Pushing creates more tension. Clearing is about no longer picking up what passes by. Imagine your mind is a table. All day long people leave papers on it. News, worries, other people's opinions, unfinished tasks. If you pick up every paper and read it, you will never leave the table. Clearing is not throwing the papers on the floor and pretending they do not exist. It is letting them be on the table without picking them up. This is the art most people never learn. They think not thinking means suppression. Suppression says, I should not have this thought. Clearing says, this thought can be here and I do not need to follow it. The difference is everything. Suppression tightens. Clearing softens. Suppression needs control. Clearing needs choice. There is a validated way this works in real life. When a thought appears, you have a tiny window, less than a second, where you decide whether to engage. If you engage automatically, the thought grows. If you notice and do not engage, it passes. Not because you defeated it, but because you did not feed it. Attention is food. What you attend to grows. What you notice without attending to fades. So the practice is not to have fewer thoughts. It is to have fewer engagements. You will still have many thoughts, but you will follow fewer. Remember the man who felt guilty on Sundays because he had nothing to react to. His story did not end with him staying guilty. One Sunday, he tried something different. Instead of opening his phone to find something to have an opinion about, he sat with his coffee and let the guilt be there without solving it. He noticed the urge to check, to scroll, to feel the silence. He did not argue with the urge. He just said internally, I see you, and I am staying here. For the first few minutes it was uncomfortable. His mind offered 10 reasons to move, to do, to react. He did not take any of them. After about 7 minutes, something shifted. The urge did not disappear, but it lost its authority. It became background noise, not a command. He realized that for years he had confused urge with identity. He thought, if I feel the urge to react, I must be someone who reacts. That day he learned that urge is just a visitor. Staying is a choice. That is the practice I want to give you. It takes less than 3 minutes, several times a day. Pause, not to meditate formally, just to return. Ask one question. What do I actually believe in right now? Not yesterday, not in general, right now. Let the answer be simple. I believe in breathing slowly. I believe in finishing this one task. I believe in listening fully to this person. Then let that belief decide your next 10 minutes. If a thought comes that does not serve that belief, you do not need to fight it. Just notice it and say, not this one. This is not rejection. This is selection. A gardener does not hate weeds. He just chooses what to water. You are learning to water what you believe in. Validation here is important. You will not do this perfectly. You will forget. You will get pulled. You will have days when you think about absolutely everything again. That does not mean you failed. It means you are human, and your nervous system learned an old habit of scanning everything to feel safe. You are teaching it a new habit. New habits need repetition, not perfection. Permission is this. You are allowed to clear your mind without explaining why. You are allowed to leave a conversation mentally when it no longer serves your direction. You are allowed to close tabs, to not answer immediately, to not have a take. You do not need to justify clarity. Clarity justifies itself by how you feel after. The reframe is gentle. Not thinking about everything is not laziness. It is stewardship. You are a steward of limited attention. A good steward does not give everything to everyone who asks. A good steward gives what is needed to what matters. That is what you are learning. And as you learn, you will notice a second layer that was hidden underneath the noise. It is not just that you thought about too much. It is that your energy has been leaking in many small places, trying to hold all those thoughts together. When you stop feeding the noise, that leaking slows. And when leaking slows, energy returns, not as excitement, but as grounded presence. If while hearing this you felt a small softening, a breath that went a little deeper, mark it. In the comments, write the word return, not for the algorithm, but as a signal to yourself that you return today, even for a minute, to what you believe in. Sometimes one word is enough to keep the direction alive. And that return is what finally allows you to understand why you felt so tired for so long. It was not because you did too little. It was because your energy was leaving you in every direction. When that leaking stops, something quiet and strong comes back, and that is exactly where we need to look next. There comes a moment when you realize your tiredness was never about how much you did. It was about how much you leaked. Leaking is quiet. You do not notice it while it happens. You notice it afterwards, when you have done a full day and feel strangely empty, as if something left you without your permission, that something is a tension that was never gathered. When you think about absolutely everything, you do not just think. You leak. You leak into conversations that do not need you. You leak into worries about futures that may never happen. You leak into opinions that ask for your energy but give nothing back. Each leak is small. Together, they drain you. Most people try to fix this by adding more energy, more coffee, more motivation, more techniques. But you cannot fill a bucket that has holes everywhere. You have to close the holes. Closing does not require force. It requires choice. Every time you say internally, "Not this one," a hole closes. Every time you return to what you believe in, another one closes. Slowly, without drama, you begin to keep more of yourself. And when you keep more of yourself, something changes that no productivity system can give you. You become steady. Steady does not mean you never feel emotion. It means emotion moves through you without taking you away. You can hear criticism without collapsing. You can hear praise without inflating. You can hear bad news without spiraling into every possible scenario. Not because you are numb, but because your center is thicker than the noise around it. I think of a man who worked with his hands. He was not interested in spirituality in the abstract. He was interested in not feeling wrecked at the end of the day. He started noticing where he leaked. He leaked when he checked his phone while talking to his daughter. He leaked when he rehearsed arguments that had not happened. He leaked when he said yes to things he did not believe in to be polite. He did not try to change his personality. He just made one agreement. When I notice leaking, I return. Return to breath. Return to one task. Return to what I believe in this hour. At first it felt small, almost too small to matter. After 2 weeks he said something simple. I have more evening left. Not more time, more evening. More of himself left at the end of the day. That is what stops leaking gives you. Not more hours, more of you inside the hours you already have. Validation matters here. If you have felt tired even after rest, it is not because you are lazy. It is because you have been generous with the wrong things. You have been generous with noise, with distraction, with other people's urgencies. You have been stingy with what actually restores you. You are allowed to reverse that. You are allowed to be stingy with noise and generous with what you believe in. You are allowed to protect your attention the way you would protect a small flame in wind, not by hiding it, but by shielding it with your hand until it becomes strong enough to stay lit on its own. The reframe is this: energy does not come from doing more. Energy comes from leaking less. When you stop arguing with every thought, when you stop having an opinion on everything, When you stop trying to hold 100 windows open, energy that was scattered returns. It does not return as excitement. It returns as grounded presence. You feel heavier in a good way. More here, less pulled. People around you feel it too. You become someone who is actually in the room, not half in the room and half in 10 other places. That presence is rare now. It is also healing, not only for you, but for those who are with you. Because when you are fully here, you give others permission to be fully here too. And if while listening to this you felt your shoulders drop, even a little, even for a second, notice that. That drop is energy returning. That drop is a hole closing. If this made you breathe slower, press like not for the video, but as a small sign that you are choosing to carry less today and keep more of yourself. Sometimes even such a silent gesture is a form of inner stewardship. It says, I am no longer available for everything. I am available for what I believe in. And that availability changes how you live from now on, because when leaking stops, you no longer live to be filled by the world. You live from a fullness that was already here, underneath all the noise. That fullness has a name. It is living from one true thing. And that is the final turn of this journey, where everything we talked about becomes a way of living, not just an idea to think about. Living from one true thing is not a slogan. It is a way of making your life smaller in the right way, so it can become larger in the right way. When you lived trying to think about absolutely everything, your life became large in a way that exhausted you. Many topics, many opinions, many tabs open. But small in the way that mattered. Small presence, small depth, small peace. Living from one true thing reverses that. Your external life may look smaller. Fewer debates, fewer reactions, fewer attempts to be everywhere. But your internal life becomes larger. More depth, more presence, more quiet strength. Remember the image from the beginning. A room with 100 radios on at once. For a long time you stood in the middle trying to listen to all of them because you thought that was awareness. Now imagine you walk to the wall and turn the dial. You find one station, not the loudest, the truest, the one that sounds like what you believe in. You turn up its volume just enough to hear it clearly. You do not need to smash the other radios. They turn off by themselves when you stop giving them your attention. That is focus as a form of prayer. Not prayer as words you say, but prayer as attention you keep. Focus is what you worship with your hours. You already worship something with your hours. The question is whether you chose it. Many people worship urgency without ever choosing it. They give their best hours to what is loudest, not what is truest. To live from one true thing is to change what you worship with your attention. You choose one thing, and you return to it. Not once, daily. Belief is not proven by how intensely you feel it in one moment. It is proven by how often you return to it when you forget. Return is the real practice. Forgetting is not failure. Forgetting is part of the practice. Every return strengthens the path. I think of a woman who chose one true thing after years of feeling scattered. She did not choose something grand. She chose, I believe in speaking kindly to myself. That was it. She used it as her station. When she was about to criticize herself for not doing enough, she returned. When she was about to compare herself, she returned. When she was about to stay up worrying about everything, she returned. Speaking kindly to herself. At first it felt artificial. After a month it felt like a direction. After 3 months people around her said she seemed different, calmer. She had not changed her job, her house, her circumstances. She had changed what she kept returning to. That is what one true thing does. It does not add. It organizes. It takes the same life and gives it coherence. Validation here is simple. You do not need to know your one true thing for the rest of your life. You only need to know it for this season. What is the one thing you want to be faithful to for the next 30 days? Not to impress anyone, not to be perfect, just to have a center. It could be, I believe in presence. I believe in honesty. I believe in finishing what I start. I believe in resting without guilt. Choose one. Let it be small enough to live today. Let it be true enough that it costs you something. Because if it costs you nothing, it will not hold you. Permission is this. You are allowed to disappoint many things to be faithful to one thing. You are allowed to not be updated about everything. You are allowed to miss some conversations. You are allowed to be misunderstood by people who preferred you when you were agreeable to everything. That misunderstanding is not a sign you are doing it wrong. It is a sign you are finally doing it from a center. The reframe that closes this whole journey is this. You were never meant to think about absolutely everything. You were meant to think deeply about a few things that are yours, and let that depth change how you meet everything else. When you think deeply about one true thing, you stop needing to have an answer for everything. You have a way of meeting everything. That way is calmer, slower, kinder, clearer. You no longer enter a room to prove you know. You enter a room knowing what you stand for. And that is enough. So as we close, bring it back to where we started. There is a kind of tiredness that sleep does not fix. Because it was never about sleep. It was about carrying. Today you are allowed to set down what was never yours to carry. You are allowed to let the 100 radios go silent. You are allowed to turn the dial to one true station and stay there. Not because other stations do not exist, but because you finally chose where your life will come from. Focus on what you believe in. Let the rest exist without your constant commentary. Let your attention become thick again. Let your energy stop leaking. Let your house become inhabitable again. If this journey gave you even a little more of yourself back, share it with one person who is exhausted from thinking about everything. Not to convince them, but to give them permission to carry less. And if you want to keep returning to this center, subscribe not as a way to consume more, but as a small commitment to return to what you believe in. One true thing at a time. One return at a time. That is enough to change a life. And it starts now with what you choose to believe in today.